Hey, it's Paul McFadden here, and I'm really looking forward to this conversation we'll be having with Gary here. Why? Because one of the most talked about topics that I'm always sharing with people, especially when it comes to entrepreneurship, business, being a high performer, is looking after yourself and your health. Because ultimately, like, it doesn't matter how much money that you make, if you don't have health to go along with it, then what's the point? Because health is wealth ultimately. And Gary's a good friend of mine, someone that I've been fortunate to spend a lot of time with. And anytime I'm on the phone with him or get to see him, especially out here in Marbella, it just blows my mind with just the stuff that you talk about in terms of just keeping that pulse on the things that make us high performers from the inside out. So, Gary, tell us a bit more about yourself, your business too. More importantly, we'll get into some of the kind of biohacks and things you're working on to be a high performer.
Yeah, brilliant. I mean, listen, what you just said is perfect. Health really starts at a cellular level. So for me, I've always been interested in fitness and health. And as people are growing businesses, one thing they tend to lose is the health.
Yeah.
We're so focused on the outcome and the expertise that we've got, we tend to forget cells. So, and I've seen that with many friends and people that are very successful in business. And I'm thinking, the only real financial reward you get is your health if you don't look after it. So if you're out there pushing your businesses and, it's not just us that we forget, it's as family and the relationship. So I've been sort of spending the last sort of decade really focusing on what is out there and what really shifts the needle from a health perspective.
Yeah. And you have a place you've got opened up, ready to launch in Leeds, haven't you?
Yeah, so for the last 12 months we've been in construction. We basically opened a company that's called DEXA, which is a DEXA scan that can measure full body composition and bone density. But we collaborated with a couple of professors, scientists, and a couple of investors in the university to bring together some technology that's a non-pharmaceutical option along with DEXA scan, which is like a gold standard for scanning the body. And we've opened it in Leeds now. It's called the Muscle and Bone Health Clinic. And basically, we're bringing all of the clinical expertise that would be around physical degeneration. Now we can optimize that.
Yeah. Because the last time we spoke about all of this, there's a story behind that with your mum, isn't it?
My grandmother, yeah.
Your grandmother.
Yeah. So she was obviously near and dear to me, very glamorous grandmother with her hair immaculate and her nails immaculate. And I saw this amazing lady sort of, degraded and getting smaller and like kyphosis, which was osteoporosis. And when I met a scientist by the name of Dr. John Jaques, she really said to me, look, osteoporosis is just a deconditioning of the bone. Anything that's deconditioned can be reconditioned. And it kind of blew my mind. I'm like, just tell me a little bit more. And he said, well, think about it. When astronauts go to space, there's no gravitational pull, therefore their bones become very weak and deconditioned. On planet Earth, as we go through life, as bones start to degrade about 1 or 2% after the age of 30. And then when women particularly hit the menopause and later in life, we then start to lose it at a rapid rate. So how do we get all the benefits of, let's say, gymnasts who have the strongest bone density without all of the risk? And this device that he invented basically give anybody that opportunity to have superhuman bones.
So when you go along to your place, you do a few tests with different machines, don't you?
Yeah, very simply. So the journey to knowing your bone health starts with a T-score. What's a T-score? It's basically a DEXA scan that shows how dense the bone mineral density is. Okay, and then we look at that, and if you just simplify it and look at green, yellow, and red, so if Paul was to have a DEXA scan, we'd look at your age, we'd look at a few other factors, and we'd put where you are, where normative data would say you are, should be, and where you're likely to be in the future. So if we took you a year ago, and just for the people that's watching and listening, osteoporosis starts at minus 2.5, okay, which then goes into red. So normal bone range is 0, and then it goes into minus 1.3 and down the way. So if you're in yellow, you can very clearly see where you are. And if we measure you in a year's time and you drop a couple of deviations, then we get to see and can predict where Paul's going to be in 3 years from now, 5 years from now. And then with that, we can look at technologies that we can do to not only maintain good, healthy bone, but hopefully take you back into the normal ranges of a 30-year-old.
Yeah. And it's so important, isn't it? But it's so underestimated. People are not even aware of it.
No, I mean, we say it's the foundation of health. If you see a dentist, they'll say health starts in the mouth. So we're all coming from different angles. But truly, if you think about this, if you have an architect and he's building a 30-story building, let's just say, and maybe make it more property related, and the penthouse is worth 300 million. I in fact was recently in Davos, and I use this as an example. I said, well, how much is it worth? And I think he said something silly in tens of millions. And I said, what if you was to sell it for just 1 million? He said, well, I could sell it for 300 times more than that. I said, but what happens if you told the buyer that you just the reason you're giving discount is because you don't know how strong the foundation of the building is.
Yeah.
And I said, would they buy it? He said, well, no, nobody would buy it. I said, well, the thing is, we're the architect of our own building, but we don't know how strong our foundation is. So yeah, people don't know about the bones because it's only when you get older that you realize that it's really a challenge when you have something wrong.
Yeah. And when it comes to health and fitness and wellness, what's some things that you do on a regular basis that works well for you? Because a lot of people that I interact with, same with yourself, especially in business, sometimes we're so focused. And it was like that for me for far too long until I started to get a bit more of a holistic approach to living life, trying to have the lifestyle, trying to balance being a father with kids and also not forgetting that I'm also married. I need to look after my wife too and run multiple different businesses. And it could be a bit chaotic. And there was definitely times in my life where I forget about myself, that self-care, going to the gym, exercising, and just seeing, what's under the hood here and what's going right or what's going wrong, and we forget about that a little bit.
Of course we do, yeah.
So is there some things that for anyone that can maybe just start to tap into that will make a difference?
Yeah,
and of course, consistency is important, isn't it?
Absolutely. I always say if you want to be business strong, you've got to be headstrong. To be headstrong, you've got to be physically strong. And then it goes round in a circle. But for me, there's so much complexity out there. There's a green drink, there's this juice, there's that diet, there's this weight training, there's that weight training. And then people just procrastinate and think, oh, I just can't be bothered. And then you had a bit of stress in there before you know it. Them habits, it's too much effort. So I just tried to simplify things and say, how do we take these complex issues, make them simple, and just give one or two things that people can actually do on a regular basis that's, habits form good things if it's good habits. So in the morning when I wake up, I'm very, very mindful about I have to sort my own internal world out first before I go, into the real world. So for me, I look at, meditation. What is meditation? It's really just being quiet, just giving that stillness. I break it actually down into 4 doctors, the last 4 doctors that you need, which is Dr. Diet, Dr. Quiet, Dr. Happy, and Dr. Movement. And that's all like 4 quadrants, 4 compartments that you want to break down and think, okay, which doctor do I need to visit today? And if it's a crazy day the day before, then you might want to visit Dr. Diet. If you've had a really crappy meal the night before, then it's Dr. Diet, get your food back on track.
Yeah.
But ultimately, you just, for me, it's breathing, really good looking at like Wim Hof methods, any form of breathing, because think of any emotion if you're stressed out. Where's your breathing? Where's, are you shallow? Is your shoulders forwards at the backs? So you have to look, when you wake up in the morning, look at just, for me, is cold showers, is breathing, and some form of physical exercise. If you were just to do one thing and get up and go for a walk and exercise, when you start to move, you start to think more clearly. And it's just giving yourself that little bit of time in the morning before you pick up your phone and before you go out. But if you can keep consistent to that, that'll breed some more good habits. And as you go through life, then try and add a few more as you go through it.
Yeah. I found for myself as well, having a good morning routine makes a big difference. And a lot of people ask, Paul, like, what's your morning routine? And it's actually quite simple, straightforward, very similar to what you see there, because it's got to be. Because the first thing you do when you wake up in the morning, you've got resistance happening. You try to get out your bed and do things. So how can we overcome that resistance? The last thing anyone wants to do, I don't know about you, but for me, having to get up in the morning and go for a run and anything else, for me, it's all about, well, let me just get a little bit of a process that works well for me. So I love the cold showers. At least 3 or 4 times through the week, I jump in the ice barrel as well, which is great.
Which is extreme for most people. However, that is the next level. It is a game changer.
And it is, but the more you do it, you actually look forward to it, which is a bit bizarre and weird at the same time. Not the mornings, I mean, you still have the resistance, but the more that you do it, the health benefits and how you feel good, the endorphin release as well, coming out of it just really sets you up. And then just having that little bit more of mindfulness as well. So I like to do my jiu-jitsu in the morning, so I get some private coaching.
Oh, really? In the morning?
Yeah.
You're hitting the day pretty hard.
I try and get as much done before 9 o'clock.
You start the day with a fight, the rest of the day is
Something, But if I can get as much done by 9, working on me, I feel like everything flows well. And the days that I miss things, I can totally sense the difference. So kind of what your analogies were there is talking about, would I need to visit which doctor today? That's a good thing to look at it. I really like that approach.
I always say, there's many doctors out there that are going to give you advice, just like in business and property. You just have to be careful to who you go and seek the advice from. You can't go to see a doctor and can't be surprised if he's going to give you tablets. You can't go to a surgeon and say, I can't believe he did surgery on me. That's what they do. So you have to be careful. And I always believe is that, you truly have everything that you need inside of you. You've got the knowledge, you've got the intelligence, you've got a common sense corner. I think sometimes you just have to say to yourself, what is the right thing for me right now? Because so many of us react. And that's why the morning rituals are so important, because if we go into his day, we become more reactive. You want to hit the day being proactive. And that's why I think if you can create an element of stress in the morning, it's sort of, when you get out into that day there, and then the days that you don't, you feel the difference. It's almost like I need to be prepared and ready.
Yeah, habits are so important. So for me, throughout the day, so much goes on that if I need things to later on in the evenings, I want to get my workout, and then
You're chasing the day.
exactly. So flipping it around makes a big difference.
Absolutely.
So one of the things I want to talk about is that, because I think all high performance people, all high performers, and that's not whether it's entrepreneurship or business, it could be in your career as well.
Yes.
I believe all high performers should get some element of bloods taken regularly and check and see how they are. The methylation test that you got me onto, which was a big eye opener because it opened me up to a few little breaks in the sense of, how I operate, how I'm processing things. I'd love, because I would make an absolute mess of it, I'd love if you could explain that a little bit more. And just the benefits of getting something like that done in terms of a test, whether it's your bloods and the methylation.
I've been listening, there's so many tests out there, and this is one of the things why the methylation test is really important, because it's crucial to us health, So before we get to methylation, and then we'll just talk a little bit about bloods, it's like, again, look at your business. You need to know what's in the account. Most people people would never write a check that they can't cash in. Actually, a lot of people do when they can't cash it in. But generally, energetically, you can't do that. So when we can't do that, it still pays, but it shows up later on in our physical health and mental health. So like anything, we need to know the numbers in his bloods. And I love what Gary Brecker says, the one thing that's not in your bloods is somebody else's opinion. But when somebody gets hold of your bloods, you want to make sure that the person that's reading that, I always like to say functional medicine doctors, because I'm not saying if you get hit by a car at 50 mile an hour, you need vitamin D3, you need to see a surgeon. But we want to look at addressing this and go to the causation, not the symptoms, because when you have your bloods done, tend to generally, I don't want to be too judgmental, but generally look at the symptoms and treat the symptoms. Where I really want to be sort of focused on, if you've got a gallbladder problem, a lot of surgeons will say, okay, well, we'll just whip the gallbladder out. Well, there's a reason that the gallbladder was in, had an issue with that, with it to do its job. So let's look at that, because if you take the gallbladder out, the problem's still there. So this is why I always recommend people to get the bloods done. Look at the main biomarkers. Look at your vitamin D3 levels, your zinc, your magnesium, obviously red blood cell, white blood cell count. Let's look at the immune system, because I always believe that disease is always there and around you. It's how strong your immune system is. It's how strong your ability to react. If you think of your body like soldiers, you've got 500 good soldiers and you've got maybe 300 bad soldiers. We need to keep that ratio right and the intelligence right on the good immune system. The minute that you get overworked, overstressed, don't do your rituals, then you start to deplete your good soldiers. And then you get a cold and a bit more stress, and then you start to lose it. And that's where you can feel the immune system. And that's when your body just shuts you down. So the most important thing for me is, obviously, and for everybody, it should be the health. And you can't start your health journey if you don't know your numbers in your blood. So, but regarding the methylation, there's 5 genes in the human body that are responsible for a lot of things going on. So one of them is called the MTHFR gene. And if people was to look at getting that test, think of it as like the plumbing in the house. There's many of the things that you need to address. So it's not the one all fix everything. But if your plumbing's not working in the house, okay, don't fix the roof. But let's get the plumbing right. Let's make sure that you're methylating properly. If you've got an MTHFR break, it's basically your inability to break down certain enzymes, so folic acid. So it's like you would never take oil out of the ground and put it straight in the car. You would have to refine it into gasoline and then put it in the car. It's the same for the body. We just need to look at supplementing for that break in the gene. But it's fascinating, when you actually start to supplement for the deficiencies. And remember, supplements are only to supplement for what you're deficient in. So many people think they take all these pills and potions and it's bingo, it's a win. We really want to be looking at getting as nutrients from food. 70% of cancers are caused by food, which is an alarming rate. So when you look at gene breaks and think, well, my father had cancer, his father had cancer, so I'm going to get cancer. That's not really true. You look at epigenetics now, that might be the gun loaded. It's whether you're going to pull it. So it's the environment that you spend your time. So if you're smoking and sedentary and stressed out, okay, you're going to probably speed that up and potentially cause yourself to have those, unfortunate diseases that your parents had. But we actually can choose to live a better quality of life, healthier life, and supplement for those breaks. My parents didn't have this advice or knowledge or anything that we've got. So this is why it's so important to make sure that we don't complicate what methylation tests are and all these bloods and You know, I just want to really help people to simplify it. And that's why, again, I come back to the last 4 doctors. And there's actually one doctor that a friend of mine, Osama, we're working on doing a summary of it, which is, you know, Dr. Diet, Dr. Quiet, Dr. Happy, Dr. Movement. But the 5th doctor is Dr. Truth. And Dr. Truth is, we all know what that is to ourselves, because there's so many times that we just sort of not lie to ourselves, but if we can start to be really truthful with ourselves as to what truly matters, then that's going to power all the other doctors to be able to make sure we visit them.
Yeah, no, I love that. I think that for me, as much as there's so many tests, because you can't get lost in it, isn't it? There's just
21 and me, yeah.
tests. But if you just look at the basics, you know, eat well, be mindful of the junk that we're eating. A lot of us far too much.
Processed, yeah.
Yeah,
Carbohydrates.
get ourselves out there to move a lot more, exercise, maybe, you know, eat less calories, you know, consume less calories. Just simple little things that we can be mindful of, because there's just so much information these days that there's no excuse. There actually is no excuse. And this is why I always stress to high performers.
Yeah.
And sometimes you're just literally looking in the mirror because you've got Dr. Truth there, you can't lie. You know, you kind of can't lie.
Yeah.
And it's been times in my life I look in the mirror and go, that I don't like what I'm seeing.
Yeah.
And you have to reflect and look and go, that never just happened overnight. That's happened through a consistent good or bad choices. You know, it's like the 6-pack or get into the best shape, getting toned. It doesn't happen overnight. We all know that. Yeah. But if you put those reps in and you're eating well over a consistent period of time, you get the results. It's a bit like life and business and everything as well.
Yeah. I mean, if people do it when they get scared, it's like anything in business. You know, if your business is going off the edge of the cliff, you suddenly start getting emergency, start panic stations and reacting, and everything's hands on deck. I mean, you can't be tuning the radio if there's a hole in the boat 50 foot offshore. But one thing we're looking at now is the emotional well-being of individuals, because no matter how much they know and visit Dr. Truth, they just, for some reason, are not able to actually do what they know they need to do. So what's the missing link? It's the emotional wellness. And if you look at what Jeremy Hunt's just recently done, he's just wrote a $406 million budget for the 2 biggest reasons why people are off work, and it's mental health and MSK, which is musculoskeletal health, so physical deconditioning. So when you look at that, it's people are obviously challenged emotionally. So any past traumas and wounds, but you know, without going into psychology, every single person is dealing with traumas and wounds that they've not yet healed, which trigger them on a daily event that sets them back. Now, it's not the thought that they have about something that derails them, it's the feeling associated to that thought. So we're only as good as his mind. So we have to stand guard of his mind, but we also have to deal with the back catalogue of stuff, because, you know, you're quite a successful guy and everybody sees your success in public, but what they don't see behind the scenes is everything that you've had to do to get here. And I'm not saying you've got loads of traumas, but there's things along the way that's a back catalogue. And unless we truly address those, then it's like an anchor around the foot that disables a lot of people being able to break free and actually truly live the stronger version of themselves. So we're looking at emotional well-being programs with a guy by the name of Richard D. Moore, who's just a phenomenal guy. So
love this stuff. So what's some of the kind of key take-homes for people who are just maybe exploring this, or looking to just get themselves to become a high performer, look after themselves and make some changes, and, you know, maybe dive in a little bit deeper? What's kind of some of the things you maybe recommend?
Yeah, I mean, there's so many people on podcasts. So I don't want to be one of those people that said, do this, and do this. But I think when you just take a step back, sit down in your common sense corner and say, and I always say, the only thing that matters is the way you feel in any given moment. So the question is, how do you feel right now? Most people might be saying, well, I feel crap, I feel tired, I've got work, I've got this project. That's great. That's always going to be there. Like Liz Brown said, you're either in a problem, you've just left a problem, or you're heading towards one. So you better be ready for it. So just simplify it down. When you wake up in the morning, okay, and generally when you're asleep is when your body's having the best repair because you're out the way of it. But when you wake up in the morning, it's the mindset. What's 1 or 2 things that I could do every single day, first thing in the morning? So at least if my day goes south towards the end of the day, I've started off good. And that literally might just be getting up in the morning and just doing some physical form of exercise. Literally, that's it. And then I would then look at progressing. You have 3 or 4 things that you want to do, but don't think you've got to do 3 or 4 things from doing nothing. The one thing I would do is look at how you can look at some type of physical exercise, because that then changes the biochemistry and it gets the mind kick-started. Because if that's blocking us, the mind, we're never going to do anything physical. So it's get out there, do something physical, and then start to plan the other amazing things that are out there, from ice baths, cold showers, hydration, food. We know all these things. Most people make bad decisions on what they put in their mouth because they're emotionally triggered or driven to just turn to some quick instant sort of pleasure. So again, no matter how good your day starts in the afternoon, if your day's gone wrong, you're going to turn to those sugary foods or something else. But again, it's something that happens consistently every day. So if it took you 3 years to get to, say, physical bad health right now, it's, you still got the rest of your life. So just take each day, each week, and work on a bigger plan.
Yeah. So let's talk about something to make blow people's minds before we finish this up. I'm sure it means that we're going to have another conversation, go deeper in this stuff, because I literally could talk for hours on this. You were talking to me about a thing that you've been doing over the last week or so that's all to do with the liver. Maybe tell us a bit more about it.
Yeah. I'm obviously, there's so many things that can. I'm looking at things that can really shift the needle on your health. Okay, and what do people not look at? Like bones. Okay, it's the silent disease they call it, because you can't see your bones. You don't know you've got osteoporosis, but yet it's the very thing that's holding us together. So I'm really passionate about looking at how we can bring more awareness and education to that. But as people go through life, they don't realize how important the liver is. It's one of those livers that just don't complain. They just get on and do whatever they need to do to function. And the liver is responsible for hundreds of different operations, filtering the blood, detoxifying. Most people, I think the stats are now 1 in 4 people, I think it's even 1 in 3 people now are suffering with a non-alcoholic fatty liver. What does that mean? It means that when people are consuming certain foods, the liver has an issue with breaking down the fats. And that is responsible for everything, for circulation, for cognitive function. I mean, if you just list fatty liver and the problems that we have, it's an epidemic. So, I'm working with a guy called Anthony Siggy, who's a scientist who spent the last, I think, 3 decades, but I know the last 17 years has been in different trials of plant extracts, and it's got nanotechnology. And it's basically 1 bottle a day that you drink, and it basically helps to regenerate the liver. But more importantly, as I've got to know this guy in this company now, like Dexter Strong, we have to know the optics. I'm saying, well, how do you know people have got fatty liver? Because currently out there's an ultrasound scan. It doesn't really tell you how much fat is in the liver. And he said, we're working with a company called FibroScan, and it's a fantastic diagnostic tool where they can scan the liver and it shows exactly how much percentage of fat is in the liver, what stage you're at, and how stiff the liver is. Now, this all has an impact on how the liver functions. So they can see where you are. So if somebody's got liver cirrhosis or fatty liver, people that are taking this bottle, which is called Deliverance, it's kind of a Deliverance, it's great. 2 bottles a day for 90 days has been shown to completely reverse non-alcoholic fat liver disease. And obviously people that are drinking alcohol as well, it's a huge thing. So people tend to buy this before they go out. So they know they're going to go drink alcohol and take Deliverance, and it does protect the liver incredibly. And the liver's the only organ that can actually replenish. If you cut it in half, it replenish and grow back, so which is phenomenal. But again, this is one of the things when you talk about moving the needle on health. If your liver's not functioning, you would just never know. So when we can shift and make the liver even more healthy, then you're going to be making so many better decisions as well.
Yeah, it's fascinating, all this stuff. Yeah. Literally fascinating. And I love anytime we get a chance to talk about this stuff, and it's great. And I'm sure, like we do any time, we will be back on talking a bit more, because, the health is just one of these things that continues to evolve. When new things are coming out, there's really helping people, and a lot more, I guess, doing more studies that actually back up certain things that a lot of people have been talking about that really helps people. And as I always say, health is wealth. And if you want to be a high performer, you've got to look after yourself. So again, it's been an absolute pleasure having you here, having a chat. So how can people reach out to you or get to find out a bit more about yourself?
Yeah, if you go on 360success.co, there's like a link tree there that shows Dexter Strong, Bone Strong, and it's got my own personal website, which is GaryRhodes.io, and there'll be more information there on there. But we're on a crazy journey. I'm so passionate about health because there's so many things that we're learning as we go along. I just add this last thing that, it's like business. You have to know your optics. So anybody that's looking at taking any supplements or anything else, might be taking vitamin D3. I always say you'd never fill a bath if you couldn't see how full it was. It might be half full, or it might be empty, or it might be absolutely full. I always believe that if you can take a blood test or you can get a scan, we can see where you are and make sure, and then we're supplementing or do it. So, because we want to see the results, we want to see that we're moving in the right direction. So whatever you choose to do and go out there, make sure that you're measuring it, you're monitoring it, and you're making sure that you're actually getting results just to whatever it is that you're doing.
Love it. Good stuff. Brilliant. So again, we'll get Gary back on, but it's been an absolute pleasure. Thanks again.
Appreciate it.
Cheers, Gary.